My first thought was to write my master's thesis on surveillance and the way FedEx evaluated our performance by monitoring the scans we put on packages, and how we in turn placed fake scans on boxes and forged signatures so we could pad our hours. But I didn't have the energy to connect Foucault's theory of panopticism to the demoralization of the FedEx worker, so I decided to write about the way in which the guys pretended to sexually assault one another on the conveyor belt and objectified women on their delivery routes in order to rescue dignity. We were breaking our bodies on those deliveries. Sometimes the wind chill was 10 below, sometimes the heat baked our faces, and 9 out of 10 of the receptionists were as demoralized as we were and determined to prove that they had lifted themselves above the status of brute, above their blue-collar upbringings. And to them, the FedEx guy was no different from that old boyfriend at the end of some train line who ended up driving a spray-painted box truck. Denigrating us allowed the receptionists to rescue pride that they lost in being spoken down to by the men and women for whom they answered phones. The FedEx guy knew this, he was keen to this, and to win these women over from their posture of superiority, the way they wouldn't say hi, the way they wouldn't make eye contact, the way they pointed to spots on the floor where they wanted the boxes that were rupturing discs in his back, like he was a fucking animal. To sleep with these women was, I wanted to argue in my thesis, the FedEx guy's way of salvaging pride in the face of obvious physical deterioration and the knowledge that the only way he'd ever leave his job was if he got fired or his spine was snapped on the conveyor belt and they gave him $100 a month in disability. Seducing these receptionists was his way of sticking it to all the men and women in suits who did not deign to make eye contact with him in elevators, as if acknowledging him might in some way have tainted their achieved equipoise. I was 25 and my body had already begun to hurt in ways I hoped were not permanent. Sometimes, sitting on the subway, it would seem like there was a knee thrust into my kidneys, if that's where my kidneys even were. Some days my neck and knees would not unstiffen. If you worked the job too long, you were going to get broken. We all knew it. Some of the guys I worked with had 5 and 6 surgeries, but they had families and no skills and no way to change jobs, so they hobbled around like wounded prey. Huge backs hunched over skinny legs. They shared details of the women they had conquered as a last stand of pride against a life that daily grew more demoralizing. To not stand on the belt and share exploits was to put on airs. After all, the women belonged to the route, not to us.